Okay, so crochet cat kit, the next one. While I was editing the last one, I started working on what'll be the second hand. And again, I have run out of white yarn. I haven't been adding rows, or I have normal tension. I don't know why this has happened. I tried to make up for it by adjusting, doing the white shorter, changing the pink sooner, but there wasn't enough pink for that either. So I'm going to do what I did previously and just use white from the unicorn kit. But if you don't have enough as well, you might need to get some yarn. If you do, I would take a snippet of this yarn with you to make sure you can match the size and the shade. But however and wherefore, I'm gonna start the other arm now. It's pretty straightforward, honestly. We're just gonna, with color A, so the white, I'm not gonna do the chain 2, I'm gonna do a magic loop again. And oh, I got through, by the way, I had enough to get through row 10 and start 11. So you know, all right, so I'm gonna bring the tail of my yarn over my finger and wrap it around once and then pinch the tail. I'm gonna go under the tail with my hook, grab my working yarn, pull it under the tail and turn my hook. Then I'm gonna pinch the tail in the loop with this hand while I get this hand in position, and then switch and chain 1 to secure. And now I'm going to work into the loop this way for 6 single crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now the second row, get a stitch marker. We're just gonna do 2 single crochet in each stitch around. So here's my first stitch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to insert under the stitch here. I'm going to do 1 single crochet and then put in my stitch marker, and then continue doing 2 in each stitch around. So a second one into the same stitch here, 2, then into this next one, 1, 2, all the way around. Now after this set of 2, I'm gonna secure my end, and then all this is for rows 3 through 11 is just single crocheting 1 in each stitch around. So I'll do 1 row, and then I will just turn the camera off and finish them out. I'll be marking each row as I go along to keep track in my pattern. Okay, I'm going to trim this. Okay, so I'm going to trim this end, turn back to right side, and now we are just single crocheting 1 in each stitch around for rows 3 through 11. So I've written out on the pattern, I've written out the numbers 3 through 11. And even though I don't really think that this is necessary, I'm sure you guys know how to do this by now, but I'm just gonna do single crochet in the first stitch here. So this is the start of row 3. I'll put my stitch marker back, and then just 1 single crochet for each stitch around all the way back to the stitch marker. Looks like I split a loop a little bit there, so I'm going to back up a little. Okay. And then it's just going to be the same thing with moving the stitch marker each time and marking off the row through row 11. And then in row 11, the last stitch, we will do a color change. So I'll come back for the end of row 11 to do that change. So that's row 3. I'll mark it off on my pattern, and then I'll do rows 4 through 11 and come back at the end of 11. Okay, so we're at the last stitch in row 11. So I'm gonna do the color change. So I'm gonna insert under the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, drop my white yarn, and just take the pink, place it over my hook, and pull it through both loops on my hook. Then I'm just gonna pull to tighten down a little, and then for the next rows we're gonna just also be single crocheting in each stitch around. So I'm just gonna do the first single crochet to secure this end a little. So under this first stitch here, I'm gonna do it around the tail. So I'm gonna yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through both loops on the hook, and then I'm gonna tie these two ends together and then trim the white, and then just keep going with single crochet in each stitch around. So I'll do this row. This is row 12. So just 1 single crochet for every stitch. And then when we get back, the white stitch will be our last stitch of this round, and the pink stitch will be our first. And then for rows, the rest of the rows 13 through 16, we will just repeat this, 1 single crochet in each stitch around, just like I'm doing now. Okay, so this is the last stitch of the row. That's row 12. So I'll come back after, at the end of row 16. Okay, so row 16 is done. So I'm just gonna fasten off and leave a tail for sewing. And that's the arm. I'll finish the other one not on camera and be back. Okay, so here are my 2 arms completed, and now we will start the tail. So we start with color B, which is the brown. I'm gonna do another magic circle. So, and you don't need much of a tail over here because it gets just enough for you to hold because it gets bigger anyway. Okay, so we're gonna 6 single crochet into this loop here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and now in the next row, instead of doing the 2 single crochet in each stitch around, we're going to alternate doing a single crochet in the first stitch and then an increase in the next. So right here under our first stitch, I'll do just 1 single crochet and put my stitch marker in. Then in the next stitch, I will do 2 single crochet, then 1 in the next, 2 in the next, and then 1 more set, so 1 in the next and 2 in the next. Okay. So now we are just gonna have for rows 3 through 7, we are gonna have, I'm gonna tie this down in the meantime, just single crochet in each stitch around, and then at the last stitch in 7, we're gonna change color, which I couldn't even actually see from looking at the box that there was a color change in the tail. But we're gonna change color. I'm just gonna tie this off. I'm not gonna bother weaving this in really. And then just do some more rows of single crochet in the round. So I'm gonna do basically through 7, toward the end of 7, come back for the color change. And then there's a couple more, and then there's actually another color change. So I will be back after I'm almost done row 7. Okay, so we're at the last stitch of row 7. We are color changing to color C, which is this pink color, but this is all we have left, so I'm not sure we'll get the number of rows out of it that we're supposed to. It doesn't really matter, but so insert into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and this is the last stitch of round 7. And I'm just grabbing my yarn and pulling it through the loops on my hook, and then I'm gonna do the first single crochet of the next round around the tail, and then I will tie these ends together. I'm not gonna trim this now actually, because I'm gonna be changing back to this color, so I'm just gonna leave it in here to change back to later. This end is a little short, so it's a little hard to tie. Oh yeah, I want to go this way. Okay. And now it's rows 8 through 11 now. Same thing, single crochet in each stitch around. And then in the last stitch of row 11 or sooner, if we run out of yarn, we'll just change back. So I'm going to try to get those rows done and I'll be back. Okay, so I'm in my 11th round. I'm supposed to do the color change at the end, and I almost made it, but I don't quite have enough yarn. If I took some from the tails I left for sewing in, I could probably finish it out. So maybe I'll just do that actually. And either way, we'll do the color change coming up at the end of it anyway. That's not really long enough to tie that off, so I'm going to back up a stitch. tie that off in a minute. All right, so now here we are, end of row 11. That'll still be enough to sew that arm on. And this is our last stitch. I started the single crochet and now I'm gonna switch back to color B. So I'm just gonna drop that pink, bring up the brown that I had left there, and bring that through. And then I'm just gonna do this first single crochet and move my stitch marker. And now I'm gonna finish this out. So I have now rows 12 to 20, just single crocheting in each stitch around again. So I'll do that off camera and I'll tie these ends and trim this. And I'll be back at the end of row 20. Okay, so this is after row 20 of the tail. And so since I didn't use since I kept the brown up through this part and didn't trim it, you don't have that tail to tie the pink to, so you can just literally do what I usually do, fastening off and just tie it under whatever stitch, knot it and just shove it in there. It doesn't really matter. So I did a slip stitch in the next stitch, and I will leave a tail for sewing. And then we start the fish, and it starts with white again. So I just think definitely at this point, this kit did not come with enough white yarn. I don't know how we were still supposed to have white at this point. But we're gonna start here back with color A for the fish, and we are gonna do a magic circle again, which is, we've done it so many times by now, and then it's again 6 single crochet. So I'm just gonna do this pretty quickly because we've already done a number of these today. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we're doing an increase row where we alternate a single crochet in the next 2 single crochet and then an increase. So let me grab a stitch marker, and we'll do a single crochet in our first stitch here and then place our stitch marker. And then a single crochet in the second stitch as well over here, then 2 in the next, and then we repeat that. So 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, then 2 single crochet, and then we have just alternating a single crochet and an increase around. So here's my first stitch here. So I'm going to go under there, do my first single crochet, put my stitch marker in, and then increase in the next stitch over here. And continue that around, so alternating single crochet and an increase, 2 single crochet in the same stitch. Now this is wanting to curl really badly toward me. I'm just forcing it back the other way because what's facing us is our right side. That's the outside that we want to see. Okay, so now I'm gonna the next row is single crochet in the next 3 and then an increase, so I'll just demonstrate that once, and then I'll finish that row out and tie this down and weave it in and then come back. So here's our first single crochet. Put my stitch marker back in. So 1, 2, 3, and then increase. And then so repeat that around. So I'm going to finish that out and then weave in the tail. Okay, so we finished that row out and tied that end off and wound it in. And now we are going to just single crochet 1 in each stitch around and then change color in the last stitch. So I'm just going to single crochet until I get to the last one and then I will be back. Okay, so here we are at the last stitch. We're going to be switching to color D, which is the blue. So insert under the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then before completing the single crochet, just grab your new color, put it on your hook and pull it through. And then I'm going to do the first single crochet of the next round, move my stitch marker, and then I'm gonna tie these 2 ends together and trim the white, and then it's just a single crochet in each stitch around. So I'm gonna for both 6 and 7, so I'm gonna do those 2 rows and then I'll be back. Okay, so here we are at the end of row 7, and next we have another increase row, so we're going to do a single crochet in the next 4 and then an increase. So here's our first single crochet, two, 3, 4, and then an increase in the next, 2 single crochet in 1 stitch. So I'm going to finish that out, and then the next row is a single crochet in each stitch around. So I will finish this row, do the next row, and then I'll be back. Okay, so now we're going to start the shaping to where the fish gets smaller. So our next row is going to be the opposite of what we just did 2 rows ago. So we're going to do 4 single crochet and then a decrease. So here's my first single crochet. 2, 3, 4. This color blue is so pretty. Then a decrease, so insert under the first, yarn over, pull up a loop, insert under the second, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on the hook. And then for your next stitch after a decrease, make sure you don't let this loop get too big just because of the natural tension. So actually, the next stitch out, the next row after this is basically the same thing, just single crochet in the next 3. I'll probably come back and demonstrate that once, but I'm going to finish out this row and then come back for the next one. Okay, so we're just gonna single crochet in the first stitch, then 2, 3, decrease, and do that all the way around. Okay, so in this next one we're kind of skipping ahead in our step down, because instead of doing 2, it's just alternating single crochet in the next and then the decrease right after that. So just alternating that around. Okay, so now we're going to do the flare out for the tail. So we're going to do single crochet in the next 3. So there's 1, 2, 3, and then an increase, 1, 2, and then again 1, 2, 3, and then an increase, And our next row is going to be single crochet in the next 4 and then increase. So here's our first stitch of the round. So 1, our stitch marker back in, 2, 3, 4, and then an increase. And then repeat that, and I'll be back. And then the last round, we have single crochet in the next 5 and then an increase, and repeat that. So here's our first stitch, 2, 3, 4, 5, increase, and then repeat that. Okay, so here we are at the end of that row. I did the repeat. Now I'm gonna fasten off. Trim this, and I'll weave that end in a bit. So here's our little fish. Now the only other thing that we need to make is the strap, and that is just chaining, which, you know, at this point you definitely know. Actually, did we even chain anything? We didn't even chain anything. So take your yarn. We're gonna make a slip stitch first, or a slip knot first. So I bring it around my thumb like so, holding the tail, and then I just I let go of the tail, take my working yarn, pass it through the loop like that, pull down. There's my slip stitch, slip knot, and then we're gonna chain 50. So you just yarn over, pull through the loop on your hook, yarn over, pull through the loop on your hook, yarn over, pull through the loop on your hook, etc., etc. For 50, you could do 10 and put a stitch marker to keep count. You could just do a bunch and then count. I'm gonna do a bunch and then count because that's just how I like to do things. But this is the last thing we need to make for this before we can do the assembly. So I'm gonna finish this out and then I'll be back. Okay, so here we are with all our pieces. Here's the fish, here's the strap, and we are gonna start putting this together. So we've already done the face, and now get the ears on. So they do the ears, you know what, let's do the white one first. They do the ears with the brown ear opposite the brown spot for the eye. And it looks like this ear gets pretty close to this spot, just a couple rows angled back. So as soon as I put this ear on, it starts looking like a mouse. Okay, so I've already tried the ears once. I can already tell that they need to be much further to the side than I initially think. Because I had it like further up here, and that's literally on top. So, because you know, the top is empty on the box. So we're going to move this down to further back, and we are going to try again. So I'm just going to go under the stitches here, and then I'm just going to be looping through, making sure I go through both sides of this, and under again, and just continuing to make sure I get both sides. And I'm just going to do this all the way down, and I will be back. Okay, so this is how this looks. I don't like how that is doing that, so I'm going to try to do something about that. And I also am gonna try to go up in here and sew this a little bit pointier. So let's see. I think I'm just gonna come through here along the back like this, and then back this direction and pull. Okay, that looks like it gave us a little bit more of a point. And then I'm gonna bring this back down here to just add another stitch down here, just to make it look less like it curls in there, because that was making it look like mousy to me. Okay, so that's ear one. Now I'm not gonna tie that off yet because I tend to move things around. I'm gonna try to do the next ear just the same way. I'll try to position it. It looks like I lined up along with this is my second row here, so this first row outside of the center circle here is about where I lined it up. So I'm gonna try to do it in the same position, and I will be back. Oh, one thing, sewing the white one on, I didn't really need to worry about where I was placing my stitches because it's white on white. But in this one, I'm going to be more conservative about where I'm placing my stitches and how big they are, so I'm going to try to hide them underneath the ear so that they don't show up. So like here, I'm just doing this tiny little grab underneath. And then as usual, coming through both sides. But I'm just using, make sure you're lined up properly. Being a lot more careful about how I'm grabbing the stitches underneath, because with the white it didn't really matter, but with this it does. So I'll be back. And as I'm going, I'm shaping this like this as I'm sewing it on to try to get some of that shape into the sewing. So like these stitches are attached further back, and then I go a little bit or further forward, and then I go a little bit back, and now I'm bringing it back a little bit forward, just to create a little bit of that shape also. Okay, so here is where we look at this and say, do these look even? Do they look okay? Can I proceed with this like this? And we're gonna say that they don't look super even, but they look even enough, and that means we're gonna proceed. Now I still will, I suppose I won't tie these down quite yet. I'll just err on the side of caution, even though then they get in the way for the rest of my sewing on and are annoying. Maybe I'll just tie them up real fast up here in case I decide to move them later. And now we're going to move on to sewing the head onto the body, which hopefully will be rather straightforward. I have some extra fluff still. I did add more to the body, and I added a little more to the head once I saw how much I had left. And actually I reread, and it doesn't ever say to stuff the arms or the tail. So I have some extra in case I feel I need to add it to the neck. Now I guess I'll just choose where my front looks. It looks like this is the front. This pattern more than the other ones, I guess because of the fact that it's just this flat front. I feel like you can really see all the places where you increased and decreased, and I don't love that, but maybe once the bag is on, it won't be so noticeable. Okay, so I got the head on and realized it looked kind of funky, because they don't really have much of a neck here, so I'm sort of reorganizing some of the stuffing to make the body look a little wider and make it more like just body to head rather than an actual neck area. And then we will get this sewed on. So let's try this again. So we're gonna line up. Try to make sure we're kind of on straight. It's always at this point that you notice how wacky the ears are. Maybe we'll fix the white ear. Maybe we won't. So what I'm gonna do is my top row is curling under really bad. I'm gonna come in under the stitch like this and come out like that. And then I'm gonna come up through this stitch and come out same direction. Now I have more body stitches than I do neck stitches, or head stitches rather. So in a couple I'm gonna have to do it. You can't just do one-to-one around, but I'm gonna keep doing this, and I'll tighten it up more later. But like around here for the front, I'll do like this one into this top stitch here, and then the next one I'll do into the same top stitch. Because we don't have the same amount of stitches. And then I'll do another normal one, and then I'll do these two into the same one. I just realized I might have been holding that too close to myself for you to see. It's hard to hold this and sew. But I'm just coming under like this and going out, and then doing the same thing at the top, so in to out. And then you can just tighten it down all at once. And I'll continue this around and tighten it up and then be back. Okay, so I was doing this assembly yesterday, but I got tired and just couldn't get the arms to look right. And so I was like, I'm gonna finish this a different day. So, here on the box, it looks like the arms are pretty high up, and that's what I was trying to do yesterday, but they just were not looking right. So I'm gonna put them a little bit lower, like down here, because they just weren't, I don't know, they just didn't look right up higher. So I'm just gonna try to sew these on. It didn't say anywhere to stuff them, so I'm guessing that we don't. So I'm just gonna come under here and catch this stitch like this, and then come through both layers of the arm, and then I'm gonna come back through both layers of the arm and catch under another stitch, and then back through both layers of the arm, and then I'm just going to, just to sort of smooth this out, I'm just gonna do a couple of stitches this way, to smooth that top out a little bit. So I'm gonna go under this and then come back underneath one of the body stitches, and then go under another arm stitch, and then come back under the body. Like that. And I'm just realizing that I sewed this with the join seam facing up. So I will probably fix that. But in the meantime, let's find there's my join seam. I'm gonna just try to do the same thing with the other arm. It's just pretty simple. The main thing is just trying to get them lined up. I have trouble with this. But that looks about right to me. We're the same number of rows down. And so I think here it's probably pretty good. It just looks so lopsided for some reason. So I'm just gonna come catch one of these stitches in the back. Go through both layers. And then back through both layers. And catch another stitch here. Okay, so I think that that is decent. And I'm gonna do the same thing I did up top over here on this side that I did over here, and then tie these off and weave in these ends, and I'll be back. Oh, to tie these arms off, I take the yarn, I just take it underneath the arm and do the tie down here, and then weave the end in through the body. Okay, so arms on. I think they look okay. This is neither here nor there, but I just noticed that the finishing doesn't mention the tail. So I guess they forgot that. We're not gonna forget the tail. We're gonna put the tail on. And since it doesn't mention it, it doesn't say anything about the wear. So we're just gonna, I think, sew it on about here. Maybe a little higher because it looks like it kind of comes up above our arm. So maybe right here, kind of toward the center of the white section. And this is just gonna be quick because we don't have to line two of these up and make sure they match. So I'm just gonna come under a stitch here and then just catch this stitch here, come down, come under this stitch here, and I'm literally just gonna do this around. I'm gonna try to keep it, I'm not necessarily flattening it, so I'm just now going up a little bit higher and just working my way around like this. For the tail. So I'm just going to keep doing this around and then I will be back. Actually, since I want the tail, I kind of want to encourage it to come this way. I'm gonna push it sort of toward the position I want it to be in. I mean, I would have done this anyway, but I hadn't mentioned it. And so now when I do this next stitch here, I'm gonna, instead of grabbing the edge like I was before, I'm gonna go a little bit higher and grab the side of the stitch like so. And I'm gonna do that for like these two stitches here. To encourage that shape and direction a little, like that. And then now I will come down here and I'll grab one of these side stitches here and then just finish off down here. Now to tie this off, I'll just take the yarn through to this side of the tail just to hide it a little better. And I'll just catch under one of these stitches here, knot it off. I could weave this end in a little bit, but I'm just gonna run this in through the tail and out through the other end, and then pull it a little to the end will disappear into it when it's snipped. And there we go, tail is on. So now we move on to the fish. Okay, so next for the fish, we have to put in French knots on either side of the head. I'm not great at these, but I'm gonna go in through and come out about where I want the eye to be, which is gonna be right here. Okay. Now, you bring your tip of your needle down here and you wrap your yarn around twice, and then you go back into your work in a similar spot but not the same exact spot. So I'm going to try to go in through this stitch, and then you gently pull this to tighten it down and make it smaller, but you don't want to pull it all the way through. That might be a little too small, or maybe it's fine. And then I'm gonna do one on the opposite side where I came out. Let me rethread this. This time I'm gonna try to go back through the fish, I guess the other way, instead of going directly through like I did this time. So wrap around twice, and then I'm going to try to go in with a metal needle. It would be a little easier to push in between these stitches. I'm trying to catch the inside of that thread and then bring it back out through the fish. Let's see how I do. Tighten it down. Okay, so we have one that is slightly too big and one that is slightly too small. We're gonna go with too small. Now I am basically gonna try to get this a little bit inside out so that I can get to these ends in here and secure them. I thought about doing these eyes before we put the blue on, because there's not really a need to wait, but I was like, I'll see how the fish shapes up. Okay, so now that I've just got a little bit more of this available, I'm just going to tie these two ends together and then trim them. And leave the ends in there. And our little fishes. One of our eyes almost completely disappeared, so I'm gonna try to just lift that back out a little. I'm not really sure why we're putting, there we go, why we're putting eyes on both ends if one's going to be against the body, but that's okay. Alrighty, so we are almost done. Our last thing is just the strapping, attaching the strap and putting the purse on. So it just says, where does it say? Okay, so it just says attach at back as shown, one end by the head and the other end by the tail. So it doesn't really give us a how of doing this. So I'm just going to see. I'm just going to tie this on, honestly. I'm just going to loop under and tie it. And I want to try to do it so that this part of the chain will primarily be facing up. So let's see, we'll start here, right where these two colors join. And I'll come under. And then I will just do a few stitches through. To hold this down. So I'm just going in through the middle of the chain and then through the stitch underneath. And then I'm just gonna tie this off. Like so. And then take this end into the inside and trim. And I will do the same thing down here by the tail. This end is a little shorter, so I might just have to basically knot it on. Let's go under, a stitch in the tail, go through the chain, and then I'm gonna grab this through this loop, knot it down. We'll see if we can get another one in here. So through the chain, through a stitch, and then knot it. Okay. And then I will also take this into the fish, but in the other direction. Okay, so still not quite happy with that eye, but here's the little bag. And oh, get back here. Here it goes onto Miss Cat here. Okay, so with that, Cat is finished. Here is the kit, here is the cat. I guess I got my tail going the other way, but it doesn't really matter. This kit, I definitely ran out of white, like definitely didn't have enough. And there were some things, a couple of little things with the pattern that I thought were either unclear or even a mistake, like they totally leave out attaching the tail. So this one I think was actually a little bit more difficult than the others. But we got a cat, we got a little fish purse, she's all done. So I hope that this helps, and see you guys next time.